everyone, ready to go beyond the algorithms with us? Today's deep dive is all about AI, but not the techie stuff. We're talking about what makes us human, the big questions. And to help us out, we're turning to philosopher Murat Durmus and his book, Beyond the Algorithm.
Really got us thinking with this one. It's actually structured kind of like Wittgenstein's Tractatus, which is interesting in itself, but honestly, it was how Durmus tackles this whole idea of human thought in an age of AI that really grabbed us. Like, what happens to human thought when AI's writing chart-topping hits?
Right. It's easy to get caught up in all the cool things AI can do. But Durmus wants us to think about what makes us different, what makes us connect with music on a deeper level.
That's what he's getting at in the first chapter, the essence of human thought. He's saying AI. It's all about logic, right?
Yeah.
But human thought, way more complex than that. Think about looking at a Van Gogh, how it makes you feel, or a song that brings back a flood of memories. AI can analyze the brushstrokes, the chords, all that, but can it really feel it the way we do?
It's like AI is missing that human touch, that raw emotion that makes art so powerful. And, Durmus connects this back to Wittgenstein's ideas about language, how it shapes how we see the world, but also has its limits.
Exactly. AI might be able to string words together, sure, but can it grasp what makes a Shakespearean sonnet so powerful that we're still reading them centuries later? Human thought goes way beyond just understanding the words themselves. It's about interpretation, emotions, even the things that aren't said out loud.
That makes me think about something else Dumas talks about, what the world was like before Google, before we had all the information we could ever want right at our fingertips. It's easy to forget, but he describes this pre-digital world in the world before digital gods. Makes you realize how different things were back then.
Yeah, Durmus argues that back then, knowledge wasn't something you just looked up. It was something you had to search for, debate, be okay with not knowing everything. Might seem limiting now, but he makes you wonder if we lost something important when we switched to instant information.
It does make you think, have we lost that thrill of discovery? Remember spending hours in the library just getting lost in the stacks, surrounded by all those books, all that knowledge, the unknown. It was kind of exhilarating.
And Durmus isn't saying the digital age is bad, not at all, but he makes a good point that maybe this instant access to information, well, maybe it's stopping us from really sitting with uncertainty, having those conversations that come up when you don't have a clear answer.
Makes you wonder if we're even comfortable with ambiguity anymore now that we rely so much on AI. That's something Durmus seems worried about in the illusion of technological omnipotence, right? It's like he's saying that because AI can crunch all this data and give us solutions, we start to doubt our own intuition.
It's a valid concern. We're so impressed by AI and all its perfect solutions that we forget that human intuition, well, it can be messy. This doesn't always follow the rules. Durmus actually has this really powerful analogy for this. He compares AI to Prometheus bound, chained to the rock, forever serving up knowledge but never actually experiencing it.
Wow. So AI is stuck giving us information without ever really knowing what it means. And that's where we need to go beyond the algorithm, right? Like remembering that these tools are amazing, but they aren't everything, which is what his book title is all about, finding that balance.
Absolutely. Durmus is all about the value of slowing down, thinking things through, even being okay with not knowing everything. Things that AI isn't exactly known for. But they're crucial for us humans if we want to be creative, if we want to have those aha moments. He reminds us that AI is a tool, and like any tool, it has its limits.
So how do we avoid falling into that trap of seeing AI as this all-knowing force? Where do we even begin?
That's where Durmus gets really interesting. He doesn't just want us to put limits on AI or something. He wants us to see how those limitations actually show us what makes us human. It's like he thinks there's this whole renaissance of human consciousness just waiting to happen, but we have to strike this balance first.
A renaissance. That's pretty intense. What does that even look like, according to him?
It's not about ditching technology altogether. It's about being smart about how we use it. Remembering that AI might have all this processing power, but it doesn't have empathy or, moral judgment. It doesn't get those subtle things about being human.
It's like it's missing that piece of us that lets us connect to art, to each other, even to those big questions about life.
Right. And Durmus says this gap between us and AI, it's not something to be scared of. It's actually where our potential is. He thinks that by really owning our own strengths, our creativity, our ability to feel things deeply, to wrestle with tough ethical questions, that's how we carve out our space in this whole tech landscape.
So it's not humans against machines. It's more about finding a way for them to both exist, maybe even help each other out.
Exactly. And, one of the most interesting ideas Durmus talks about is this ethical imperative of ignorance. Now, before you think he's saying we need to go back to the Dark Ages or something, it's not about ignoring knowledge. It's more about recognizing that there are limits to what we can know, even AI.
Okay, now you've really got me curious. Ethical imperative of ignorance. What does that even mean?
He's saying it's important to be okay with not knowing everything, to embrace the mystery of the world. Think about it. If AI could give us all the answers, solve all our problems, would we still want to explore, to ask questions, to create?
It's like sometimes it's the journey, not the destination, right? If we knew how every story ended, would we still be so captivated?
Exactly. Durmus is saying there's something valuable about not knowing, about sitting with those unknowns. He even compares AI to Gilgamesh, always striving for immortality, but ultimately finding it in the stories we tell and how we're remembered.
So we're the storytellers, and AI is like a tool we use to tell those stories.
I like that. We bring the creativity, the emotion, the understanding that our time is limited, all those things that make us human. And AI can be a way to make those stories bigger, share them in ways we couldn't before.
It's interesting how this all comes back to human intuition and critical thinking, especially now with AI becoming so central to everything. We can't just take AI's answers at face value. We have to question, analyze, think for ourselves.
Absolutely. Durmus even suggests that AI could help us overcome our own biases, but only if we develop it responsibly, ethically. Imagine AI that doesn't just give us answers, but helps us see our blind spots, consider other perspectives.
That would be incredible. AI as a partner in critical thinking, making us more aware of our own biases, helping us make better decisions.
Well, cool vision, right? But it means we have to be active in shaping how AI develops. We can't just let the algorithms decide what happens next.
It's like we have this chance to not just shape the future of AI, but to rediscover what makes us human in the process. It really feels like we're talking about stepping into this future where AI isn't something we just use, it's something we actively shape.
Exactly. And Durmus would say that to do that well, we have to really understand ourselves, not just the algorithms. He says we need like a sense of humility when we're dealing with all of this. We have to accept that we don't have all the answers.
Which takes us back to that idea you were talking about, the ethical imperative of ignorance. It's such a powerful concept because it's all about being okay with not knowing, which is something AI really struggles with.
Totally. And, Durmus reminds us that there's something really wise about acknowledging that we can't know everything, even with AI helping us out. He even says, and this is a direct quote, when we talk about consciousness, we should mainly use the vocabulary of poetry.
Wow, I like that. It speaks to the idea that there are just some things you can't measure or program into an algorithm, right? Things like love, grief, that feeling you get when you look up at a sky full of stars. Those are so human. They can't just be reduced to data points.
And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe those experiences, the ones that are hard to put into words, those are the things that make life worth living, even in a world where it feels like everything is about data and algorithms.
Makes you wonder, if an AI wrote a perfect Shakespearean sonnet, would it hit us the same way? Would we still feel that sense of wonder knowing that a human being, centuries ago, put those words on paper? Durmus seems to be saying that there's something about human creativity, about art, that even the smartest AI can't quite replicate.
It's a question that stays with you, that's for sure. And Durmus, he doesn't give us easy answers, but he does give us a whole new way of thinking about our relationship with AI. One that focuses on what makes us human just as much as it focuses on all the technological advances.
So it's not about picking sides, humans versus machines. It's about finding that harmony, that balance where both can thrive.
And I think that's a great place to wrap up our deep dive into Durmus's work. We may have more questions than answers, but we also have a whole new appreciation for human consciousness, even as AI becomes more and more integrated into our lives. And if you're as fascinated by all of this as we are, we can't recommend Beyond the Algorithm enough.
It's one of those books that makes you think, really question things, maybe even see the world a little differently. So until next time, keep exploring, keep asking those big questions, and keep diving deep with us.